everybody, Ketwolski here, checking out another hashtag Star Trek Strange New Worlds discussion and theory videos. Let's jump into it. So as 2020 begins to start rolling on, we of course are getting to ramp back up with a lot more of our live action Star Trek shows. Picard Season 2 is getting ready to kick off at any moment, provided that California can get its kind of act together. But obviously Discovery Season 4 has been well within production, is kind of continuing to go through their COVID protocols to keep the show moving forward. And Strange New Worlds is also moving forward. We've gotten a lot of images of cast members returning back on set, the sets themselves being physically built, and I guess you could say some kind of test photography and shots being done as the sets are finalized and they're kind of getting things finished up there. They're being shared out on Instagram and Twitter and kind of just wherever. So the Strange New Worlds is definitely ramping up. We still don't have the official, look of the logo. We haven't gotten any real teasers or trailers or any shots yet, but obviously the show is kind of still very new within its production, which means that the show probably won't come out until either the end of this year or probably early 2022. My guess is kind of sometime in 2022, but that's a very different video. I want to talk a little bit about some theories in regards to what's going on with Strange New Worlds. Most of you guys probably remember, but just as a quick recap, Anson Mount played Captain Pike in the second season of Discovery, and everybody really liked that. Everyone was super in love with that. And then, of course, you had his number one played by Rebecca Romijn, and then you also had Ethan Peck playing Spock, and everybody pretty much liked those as well. I don't think people really hated them too much. Obviously, people hated Spock, but those people just hate everything about Star Trek, so, that is what it is. So you had this trio. People responded fairly well to them, specifically Anson Mount. People were asking for a Captain Pike series, and they got it. They greenlit the show, and they, gave us this beautiful show kind of set up. They had this really well done refit Enterprise bridge, the old TOS Enterprise bridge, which a lot of people did really like. I personally liked it. The Enterprise itself, the Disco Prize, as people like to call it, looks really great, and I'm excited to see the rest of the ship. People are very pumped for this, and for those of you guys who also don't remember, but I'll remind you, Captain Pike was in charge of the Enterprise, the captain of the Enterprise, prior to Kirk. So this show takes place in the original series timeline before Kirk takes command. You've got Rebecca Romijn, which is his number one, and you have Spock there, of course, who, serves on the Enterprise for both of these captains. Now, Captain Pike does meet the unfortunate fate of having an accident happen to him during a training, exercise or whatever it is, and he winds up in the wheelchair with a blinking light, and then he goes back to Talos 4, and they make him think that he's all healed and he can live out his life with Vina. So there's that's his whole story as we know it, and that's the story as to why we have this show. But the theory I want to talk about today may put a kind of small spin on the whole thing. Discovery's main problem, one of the chief issues with the Discovery show was that people felt like it was, kind of a horse loose inside of the house. It was knocking everything over. It was damaging canon, and I put that in quotes because people have very different opinions on that. But it was supposedly damaging canon and destroying the Star Trek universe, and it was just doing all these terrible things because the show it couldn't fit where they wanted it to fit. It was too advanced. They were too new. There was these things that were happening that didn't happen before. You guys understand the story there. So they moved Discovery to the 32nd century. Now they're making another show in the exact same timeline. Period of time in this exact same timeline, and people are, of course, kind of scratching their head like, are they going to have the same problems with Discovery with the Pike show? I mean, yeah, we have some more connections to Pike, and maybe we can kind of deal with a little bit of that, but ultimately also they're in a smaller sandbox because they have characters that we know, and we know how they kind of end up because of Star Trek canon already. It puts them into a smaller sandbox where they can't play as much as maybe some other characters may be able to do, characters that are brand new. So the way I'm visualizing this is they have kind of two options here. One is that the ship itself goes out onto a 5-year mission into deep, super deep space. We've never been before. Super deep space. And they just, encounter things that we've never seen, encounter races that we've never heard of. Just they go way into these strange new worlds. They go way out there, in a sense, kind of creating a pocket of sand that they get to play inside of that doesn't damage the rest of the TOS era / prime timeline. That is one option I think they could do. Another option, which I think is a little bit more bold, but there's reasons for why I think that they may do this, is a branching timeline construct. Now, before everybody freaks out, let me talk about why I think that way. Inside of the third season of Discovery, there was an enormous amount of attention put onto the idea of branching timelines and alternate timelines. Now, obviously, for most Star Trek fans, they understand a few things. They understand you got the Prime timeline, and then you got the Mirror Universe timeline. Those are the two things. Everyone's wearing goatees. Everyone's got a clean-shaven face. Those are the timelines that people mostly understand. Now, a good portion of people also understand that the Kelvin timeline does exist. Those are those, J.J. Abrams films that came out, Star Trek, Into Darkness, and beyond. That is also a branching timeline that people understand also exists. And they even reference that inside of the third season of Discovery. Now, what's also talked about very heavily in this season is the idea of multiple parallel realities, multiple parallel universes. Cronenberg brings it up several times, also known as Kovich, hashtag maybe the Federation president. He brings it up several times in multiple different discussions, including the one where he references the Kelvin timeline, talking about how this person came from an alternate reality, an alternate timeline that was created by the incursion of a Romulan mining ship. So just the arrival of Nero is what causes the Kelvin timelines to exist, which is just one ship. One ship arriving causes an entirely new branched reality to occur. And on top of all the stuff that Cronenberg was saying, you also have the Guardian. And the Guardian was sitting there basically saying, I sent Georgiou into the past, but then also created a branching timeline by her arrival. And as soon as she starts making decisions that were not in line with her original decision points, it had then created this branching timeline. Because when she returns, he very plainly says, there is a reality out there right now where there's a Georgiou lying on the ground dying. So he pulled her consciousness out of there, but that Georgiou is still lying on the ground dying. That branching reality where Kelpians are rising up against the Terran Empire and Michael Burnham and Georgiou are dead, that reality exists somewhere. So now we have another branching timeline just within Star Trek Discovery Season 3. So a lot of discussion and a lot of focus is being made on this idea that when you move back in time, things kind of shift around. So what does that mean for Georgiou stepping through the Guardian? This is the key point that I think may impact Strange New Worlds and cause a branching timeline. But let me talk a little bit about my theories for that. So basically, there's only two options for Georgiou, which is that I think Cronenberg and the Dadmiral knew that she had already gone back in time, but didn't say anything to the Discovery crew because they're super strict on these temporal Cold War rules. So they didn't say anything, but they already knew that she had gone back in time because it already happened, and that was part of their timeline. Or they didn't know that it happened because when she arrives back in time, boom, it immediately creates a brand new branching timeline. And that timeline is now going off in a different direction. And why it impacts Strange New Worlds, simply because we know, at least so far, that show, Section 31, is going to take place in that period of time for the timeline. They know it's going to take place in the TOS era because it's supposed to co-star Shazad Latif, who plays Tyler, who's in Section 31. So the idea is that she arrives back in time in the TOS era, and then that would create a branching timeline, which puts Strange New Worlds potentially viewing that specific timeline, not the traditional one where Pike ends up in the wheelchair, but now an all new alternate timeline branch where their fates are unknown and different things could happen. At that point, really all bets are off. They can change whatever they want and just kind of cause it the ripple effect of time butterflies or whatever the hell they want to call it. And that everything has changed. He could even avoid his wheelchair fate. Maybe we won't even get Kirk in the chair. Maybe Kirk will be a woman. No, I don't think that'll be the case. But you know what I mean? Because it would have already happened at that point. But you know what I mean? It's very possible that her arrival would be a totally new timeline. Georgiou's arrival in the past could become a totally new branching timeline, and the Strange New World show that we see as an audience will be inside of that branching timeline and will be totally off in different directions. In fact, Georgiou may even start to do heavy changes in order to avoid dealing with situations like the burn. And that way, as soon as they make those decisions, it goes off in a different direction. Now, I know a lot of people are sitting there saying, well, that's not necessarily how time travel has worked in Star Trek before, and I would invite you all to rewatch all 800 episodes, 800 plus hours of Star Trek, probably close to 1,000 hours of Star Trek now, if you include all the movies. I would invite you to go rewatch all of that and realize that Star Trek doesn't really have a strong Bible on how time travel functions. Sometimes it has a direct cause and effect, and sometimes there's branching realities. and it's just a storytelling tool for Star Trek writers when they want to tell that specific story. So anybody who's sitting there saying that's not how this worked in this instance needs to go back and check all the instances, and you'll quickly realize that there is no Bible for how that stuff works. So they're kind of able to do whatever they want, and that's just a consequence of having 50 plus years of content and different, kind of creatives doing what they want. So that's just a reality of that. All right, guys and gals, that does wrap up my video today. I did want to get this theory video out there because I want to get this great discussion started. We don't have anything really going on with Strange New Worlds. Obviously, we know that they're in, their pre-production / starting to really kick off that filming stuff here, shortly. So that's very, very exciting. But I just want to start get this conversation kind of flowing and getting people juiced and jazzed about Strange New Worlds and kind of get some good theories out there. And I wanted to hear what y'all thought about this kind of wacky theory that I had. So get your comments up down below. I'm looking forward to getting the conversation started. And if you enjoyed this video, please throw a like and a subscribe up on the channel. It absolutely helps us out here. And of course, it allows you to stay up to date with all the latest sci-fi news, reviews, discussions, and theories, and all that fun stuff. So please do that for us. We really, really appreciate it. And I'll catch you all next time. Live long and prosper, my Trekkies!